You're watching CW Montana. This is the MTN 9 o'clock news.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jeanelle Slade. Thanks for joining us on the MTN statewide news. Well, across Montana tonight, trumpeter swans found dead on a Montana pond, some even with bullet wounds. We'll have those details. Plus, a Montana man swept away by an avalanche but lives to tell the story. We'll hear from him in just a bit. But first, as the coronavirus spreads across the country, state leaders make a plan to respond if that outbreak reaches Montana. Now, there are no confirmed cases of coronavirus in Montana tonight, but state leaders and health experts want to be prepared. Governor Steve Bullock announced the creation of a coronavirus task force today. Bullock says the state can expect to see the virus in the future. Now, the task force will work with state and local agencies to coordinate the response. The state health lab is now able to test for the virus after receiving about 200 testing kits from the CDC. Hospitals and health experts will determine if someone needs to be tested.
Plan, don't panic. And I think that's the biggest thing. Uncertainty brings a lot of anxiety. That's just human nature. And I think the more we can sit down, whether it be with your organization or your individual family, and think things through and say, you know, if this happens, what would we do? If this happens, what would we do? And if there's holes in that, this is the time that you can kind of start to review and figure out how you get those answers.
Now, health leaders stress the importance of using the same preventative measures they recommend against colds and the flu. Wash your hands often, cover coughs and sneezes, clean and disinfect surfaces, and if you're sick, stay away from other people. Well, as we've told you, fear of the virus has caused a run on protective masks across the state and country. Tonight, MTN's Maren Sue explains how this big buy-up is affecting certain trade industries in the Flathead Valley.
Not being able to find things like facial protection, it causes us to go out of our way to have to look for it.
This is arborist Tyler Smith. Smith needs to use dust masks to keep him safe on his job.
Pacific yew puts off toxins. If you eat it, it'll kill you. The only part of the plant that's not toxic is the skin of the berries. And so for safety reasons, cutting them and everything, if you were to get sawdust into your mouth or accidentally ingest some of it, it'll make you sick.
He says several days ago he couldn't find any dust masks. He believes all the masks were purchased by those afraid of contracting coronavirus. As of news time, health officials in Washington state report 9 people have died from the virus, but no cases of the virus have been detected in Montana. Not having access to this vital piece of equipment cost Smith precious time on the job.
We spent almost an hour trying to find masks the other day. And so that's an hour that people are sitting around doing nothing on the job site.
Dr. Doug Nelson with Kalispell Regional Medical Center says dust masks aren't even the correct type of mask to be using in viral cases.
There's a whole bunch of different types of industrial masks that are used for painting and other industrial applications. They vary in their ability to filter out virus particles, which are very small.
Dr. Nelson says the Center for Disease Control does not recommend healthy people even wear masks.
There's no evidence, scientific evidence, that helps prevent the infection.
Dr. Nelson does recommend that people wash their hands thoroughly for at least 20 seconds and keep their hands away from their face and mouths. In Kalispell, Maren Sue, MTN News.
Well, high winds wreaked havoc all across Montana today, from difficulty driving to fighting flames. Montanans were forced to face it head on. Bob McGuire standing by now to show us. Bob.
Big old chunk of a high pressure in the mid levels, and that big chunk of a high level air was at 10,000 foot. And so all of a sudden that high pressure was heavier than the air below it. So all of a sudden it started falling down to the ground. And as it did so, we call it subsidence. And as what happens is, as that falls to the ground, it starts pushing the air away. Eventually that high starts sliding away, and then it creates a little gap. Then more air rushes in to fill in that gap. And as you can see now, it looks like the winds are starting to die down a little bit. But who was the biggest windy places in the state today? Places like East Glacier, 87 mile per hour winds. Browning at 76. You see 75 at Townsend, 72 at Big Timber, 67 over at Aberdeen Hill, and Reed Point reported 65 mile per hour wind gusts there today. Jeanelle, let's go back to you.
All right, thanks so much, Bob. Well, avalanches are dangerous, period, even for the most highly experienced backcountry enthusiasts. Well, tonight, MTN's Cody Boyer talks with a Belgrade man who survived the unthinkable.
Even to experienced trail groomers like Daniel Christensen here at the Gallatin Valley Snowmobile Association, avalanches are dangerous. He knows because he survived being in the center of one.
It's like watching a movie, but then you're like, I was in it. That just happened.
Daniel Christensen has groomed the trails in Gallatin County for 12 years.
He was doing just that on the night of Thursday, February 27th, grooming for the East-West ride.
I don't know if I saw something or I heard something or what, but I had a sense that the mountain was sliding.
And it was.
It started to spin the cat. It kind of came in from the back. So it started to spin me, and then I felt it taking me over the edge. Then I was like, I'm in trouble.
Tons upon tons of snow bore down on Daniel's groomer.
It rolled me at least once. I could feel glass breaking on my arms. Snow was coming in on me. That was a pretty scary moment right there because, I told my wife the night before that I would be home about 2 in the morning.
It was about 8 p.m., meaning it could take hours to just realize he was missing.
The first thing I thought about was my wife and son because, when I started going over, I don't know if I'm ever going to see him again. I went into survival mode.
Amazingly, Daniel suffered only cuts, but he had to act quickly. Another stroke of luck, he had cell service.
I had a saw and I had fire starter and I had some food, some candy bars.
His family and search and rescue crews got there within hours. It was only then Daniel started to realize how close he truly had been to a bad ending.
When I got home that night, I was like, I am so unbelievably lucky to be alive.
And Daniel says he held his family a little bit closer than usual.
Luck kept me alive, but winter survival training kept me alive after the accident.
In Bozeman, Cody Boyer.
Educate yourself as much as possible.
MTN News.
Great story. Thanks so much, Cody. In other news tonight, the third escapee from the Hardin jailbreak last month is back behind bars tonight. 25-year-old Andrew Parham was captured at 11:30 this morning in Crow Agency. Bighorn County Sheriff Pete Bighair tells MTN his deputies and U.S. Marshals made that arrest without incident. Parham, along with 2 other inmates at the Bighorn County Jail, overpowered guards early last month. The other 2 were taken into custody a few days later. Well, last night's City Commission meeting in Bozeman drew a larger than usual crowd. The topic of interest, downtown parking. MTN's Gabby Crevitt reports.
The Bozeman City Commission revisited discussions of a downtown parking management district on Monday night.
Last night we were having a conversation about developing a tool to help us resolve the issue of parking and the impacts that our growing and vibrant downtown has on the neighborhoods.
City Hall was filled with residents and shop owners of downtown businesses. Dozens waited in line to express their discontent with the idea of regulating on-street parking in downtown neighborhoods, which would require residents and commuters to pay for parking permits. Some residents felt limiting the number of permits per household disproportionately affected lower-income renters. But much of the frustration came from a deeper place.
We're just being asked to provide the parking for the high-rises downtown.
During public comment, residents blamed the commission for not taking into account increased parking congestion thanks to new hotels and high-rise developments near the core. While acknowledging frustration, the deputy mayor said it was a totally different issue.
Nothing has been built in the downtown that has not followed the code. And if we need to change the code, that is a different conversation than what we were having last night.
But residents, including actress Glenn Close, said they couldn't help but feel their voices weren't being heard.
I think a lot of us in communities feel that the people who have the power don't listen.
In Bozeman, Gabby Crevitt, MTN News.
And Gabby tells us commissioners voted 3-2 in favor of a downtown parking management district. Well, the plan for the cleanup of Butte Superfund site will come before the Butte Council of Commissioners tomorrow. Butte Superfund Coordinator John Sesso will pitch the recently released consent decree, which is the major cleanup plan for mining contamination in Butte. It must be approved by the commissioners before the cleanup can go forward, or the EPA will order its own cleanup plan for Butte. So far, it's not certain if the commissioners will vote to approve. Well, should a terrorist or nuclear attack ever happen, the FBI trained federal, state, and local authorities in Helena today. 35 agencies, about 75 trainees took part, ranging from government officials, health experts, law enforcement, and volunteer firefighters. The transportation of radioactive material happens all across the country. And FBI Special Agent David Fitzgibbons says there's potential for an incident almost anywhere. He says it really does take tight collaboration and coordination to give an adequate response, and this training brings Montana agencies together.
In Montana, whether the crisis is at a local level or at a state level, trainings like this help us be able to have coordination and being able to help with getting out messaging and communicate to the public so that they stay informed as well too.
Fish, Wildlife and Parks wardens are now investigating after several swans were found dead on the surface of a frozen pond in Gallatin County. Now, some of the birds even had bullet wounds. Wardens say this photo was taken at Central Park Pond near Manhattan about 2 weeks ago. Trumpeter swans are both state and federally protected. Now, right now, wardens say it's too early in the investigation to tell what killed all of them, but they do confirm several birds showed clear signs of being shot.
It's something that's really deeply concerning. You know, it's a waste of public wildlife and a public resource. We take pride in the wildlife that we have here in Montana. Hunters and non-hunters alike appreciate the wildlife that we have, and so it's a shame when we see wildlife wasted.
If you know anything about this case or see any other evidence of poaching, you can contact Fish, Wildlife and Parks through its poaching hotline. Well, Yellowstone National Park has begun bison management operations at the Stevens Creek area. The 2020 Interagency Bison Management Plan calls to reduce the bison population 600 to 900 animals. Bison that migrate out of the park are captured and processed through the Stevens Creek facility. While some are sent to various Native American tribes who process the meat, others are held in quarantine to transfer to other areas if they are found to be disease-free. Now, hunters will also harvest some of the bison. Yellowstone's bison population estimate is around 4,900 animals. Still to come on your 9 o'clock news, a self-taught artist turns exotic hardwoods from around the world into lifelike Montana outdoor scenes. We'll show you in just a bit.